Have you ever let a single comment, a thoughtless action, or an unexpected inconvenience ruin your entire day? Maybe it was a rude remark from a stranger, a dismissive response from a friend, or a minor setback that sent your mood spiraling. It's frustrating, isn't it? But here's the truth. No one has the power to control your emotions unless you hand that power over to them. Imagine moving through your day with a deep, unshakable sense of peace, so strong that even the most irritating situations or difficult people couldn't rattle you. That's not just a dream, it's a skill, it's emotional mastery. In this episode, we're diving into 10 powerful lessons that will help you stop reacting impulsively, let go of anger, and take back control of your emotions. These lessons aren't about suppressing how you feel or pretending not to care. They're about building the mental strength to handle life's challenges with clarity, resilience, and confidence. From dealing with criticism to setting boundaries, from letting go of grudges to mastering the art of silence, you'll gain practical tools to protect your peace and stay in control no matter what life throws your way. By the end of this, you won't just understand emotional mastery, you'll know how to live it. So if you're ready to unlock the secret to staying unbothered and reclaiming your power, let's get started. Your journey to emotional freedom begins now. Lesson 1. Your reactions are your choice. Picture this. You're having a peaceful morning, maybe sipping coffee, enjoying the quiet, when suddenly someone says something rude or dismissive. Instantly your calm vanishes. Frustration takes over, and before you know it, your entire mood is ruined. But here's the truth. They didn't ruin your day, you did. It's easy to believe that other people's words or actions control how we feel, that a rude coworker, an impatient stranger, or a dismissive friend has the power to dictate our emotions. But the reality is, no one can control your reactions unless you let them. Think of it like noise-cancelling headphones, the honking cars, the loud conversations, the chaos. It's all still happening, but it doesn't reach you. Mastering your emotions works the same way. The world around you won't stop being unpredictable, but you can decide what you let in. Now, imagine someone criticizes your work unfairly, or a driver cuts you off in traffic. Your first instinct might be to react, snap back, hold a grudge, or let it fester in your mind all day. But what if instead you paused? What if, in that moment, you reminded yourself that their behavior doesn't have to dictate your emotions? There's a powerful quote that captures this idea. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response, and in that response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, the pause before reacting, is where your power lives. When you choose to pause, you regain control. Instead of letting your emotions take over, you give yourself the chance to respond with intention. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means recognizing that feeling something and acting on it are two different things. Let's say a coworker interrupts you mid-sentence in a meeting, dismissing your idea in front of everyone. It stings. Your instinct might be to push back, prove a point, or let resentment build. But what if you took a breath and asked yourself, is this about me, or is it their own stress or bias showing? Is my reaction going to change anything, or just make me feel worse? What response actually protects my peace? By pausing and reframing the situation, you strip it of its power over you. You stop letting outside events dictate your internal state. And the beauty of this approach is that it's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about managing them in a way that serves you. Here's something to try the next time you feel triggered. Pause. The moment you feel frustration or anger rising, take a deep breath and name what you're feeling. Anger, irritation, disappointment. Just identifying it weakens its grip. Then ask yourself, am I reacting to what actually happened or to the story I'm telling myself about it? Finally, make a choice, not from the heat of the moment, but from your values. Imagine walking through life unbothered by the little things, no longer letting rude strangers, thoughtless remarks, or minor inconveniences dictate your mood. That's emotional freedom. The world will always test you. People will be rude, situations will be frustrating, but in every moment you have a choice. Give away your power or protect your peace. Choose wisely. Lesson 2. Stop expecting people to be like you. You show up for others. You support them, check in, remember the little things, and offer help before they even ask. But when you need the same in return, silence. They don't show up the way you expected, and suddenly you're left wondering, how could they be so inconsiderate? I would never treat them that way. That kind of disappointment cuts deep. But here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't live by your standards. They act according to their own, shaped by their background, their beliefs, their habits. Expecting someone else to think or behave the way you do is like trying to control the weather. It's impossible. And trying only leaves you frustrated. It's not personal. It's patterns. Everyone is walking their own path. What feels obvious to you might not even register for someone else. When someone forgets your birthday, cancels last minute, or constantly interrupts you, it's tempting to take it as a sign of disrespect. But more often than not, it's just a reflection of where they are, not a reflection of your worth. Trying to control someone else's behavior will only leave you drained, and constantly hoping they'll suddenly start thinking like you. That's a fast track to resentment. The more you expect others to mirror your values, the more power you give them over your emotions. Imagine a coworker who constantly talks over you in meetings. You keep hoping they'll realize it and change. But week after week, it's the same pattern. You leave the room annoyed, feeling disrespected, maybe even doubting yourself. But here's the shift. What if you stopped expecting them to change? What if you accepted that this is how they operate and adjusted your approach instead? That simple act of letting go frees you, because now you're no longer reacting to them. You're responding based on your own peace. There's an old saying that hits hard. Expectations are the root of all suffering. And when it comes to emotional peace, that couldn't be more true. The less you expect people to behave like you, the more space you give yourself to stay calm, clear, and unbothered. So the next time someone lets you down or acts in a way you'd never choose, pause. Ask yourself, was I expecting them to be someone they've never shown themselves to be? Then release the expectation. Because when you stop expecting people to match your standards, you stop giving them the power to shake your peace. This doesn't mean you tolerate bad behavior or lower your standards. It means you recognize where your control ends and where your responsibility to protect your own energy begins. People are going to be who they are. Your peace comes from accepting that and choosing your response accordingly. When someone frustrates you, let this thought anchor you. They're acting from their nature, not mine. And that's okay, because I choose how I respond. Lesson 3. Let go of the need to always be right. Think back to the last time you found yourself in an argument. Maybe it was about something small, like which way to take to avoid traffic, or something more personal, like a disagreement with someone close to you. As the conversation escalated, did you feel that familiar pull, that tightening in your chest, that urge to explain, defend, correct, to prove that you were right? It's a feeling many of us know well, that quiet, persistent voice inside saying, "They need to see it my way. They need to understand I'm right." But here's the thing. Most of the time, the need to be right has nothing to do with truth. It has everything to do with ego. We cling to being right as if it validates us, as if admitting we're wrong somehow weakens us or makes us less worthy. But what it really does is keep us locked in cycles of conflict and tension. That need to win, to correct, to argue, it's exhausting, and more often than not, it does more damage than good. Ask yourself this: would you rather be right, or would you rather be at peace? Most arguments aren't about facts. They're about emotions, identity, pride. And chasing victory in every conversation doesn't just strain your relationships, it steals your inner calm. You walk away from those moments drained, frustrated, sometimes even ashamed of what you said or how far you pushed just to be heard. Now, imagine something different. Imagine someone challenges your opinion, maybe even unfairly. Instead of rushing to defend yourself, you pause. You let their words pass like a wave, and you say, "I hear you. That's your view, and I respect it. You haven't agreed. You haven't given in. But you've disarmed the tension. You've chosen calm over control." There's real power in that. When you stop needing to be right, you create space for understanding, for dialogue, for growth. Because the truth is, if you only surround yourself with people who always agree with you, or if you make every conversation a battlefield, you miss the opportunity to learn something new. You become stuck in your own perspective. Lao Tzu once wrote, "He who is attached to his views will find no growth." Letting go of the need to be right isn't about silencing yourself. It's about choosing when to speak and when to step back. It's knowing that your worth isn't on trial in every disagreement. Your intelligence isn't measured by how many arguments you win. Your peace is far more valuable than your pride. So how do you practice this in real life? Start by noticing that urge, the one that rises up when someone challenges your viewpoint. Pause. Ask yourself, is this really worth my energy? Most of the time it's not. Then, instead of defending, try listening. Ask a question. Try to understand the other person's experience. That doesn't mean you have to agree. It just means you don't have to fight. And when a disagreement does matter, when it touches on your core values or something truly important, speak from a place of calm, not from the need to dominate. That's when your voice carries the most strength. Over time, you'll start to notice something powerful. When you stop needing to win, you stop losing yourself. You stop carrying the weight of every argument. You walk away lighter, clearer, more in control. That's the kind of peace no victory can buy. So the next time you're tempted to prove a point, pause and ask, will being right make me feel better, or will being calm set me free? More often than not, it's the second one, and choosing that's where real strength begins. Lesson 4. Stop letting others define your worth. Imagine this. You're sharing something important to you, an idea, a passion, a part of yourself you're proud of. And someone responds with a shrug, a dismissive comment, maybe even a joke at your expense. In an instant, your confidence wavers. That excitement you felt turns into doubt. One careless remark, and suddenly you're questioning yourself. Why does that happen? Because too often we tie our sense of self-worth to the way others perceive us. We look for validation in their praise, And when we don't get it, when we face criticism or indifference, we feel like something's wrong with us. But the truth is, your value doesn't rise or fall based on someone else's reaction. It never has. It never will. Your worth is not defined by how others see you. It's not measured by their approval, their applause, or their attention. When you let their opinions determine how you feel about yourself, you're handing them the keys to your emotional world. And that's a kind of prison you don't need to live in. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. We know ourselves better than anyone. We live in our own minds, experience our own struggles, work through our own fears, and yet we give someone else's passing comment the power to shake us." Here's the truth. People will say things from their own perspective, their own fears, their own insecurities. Their opinions often reflect more about them than they do about you, and yet we internalize those opinions as if they're facts, as if they somehow carry more weight than what we know to be true about ourselves. Let's say a colleague makes a cutting remark about your work, not to help you improve, but to tear you down. You could spend hours overthinking it, wondering what you did wrong, replaying it in your head. Or you could pause and ask yourself, is their opinion a reflection of my value or a reflection of their mindset? You don't have to absorb everything that's thrown at you. Some comments are not worth keeping. Some judgments say more about the person speaking than the person being spoken to. It's not about ignoring feedback. It's about knowing which voices matter and which ones don't. Here's something to try. When someone's words sting, pause, breathe. Then ask yourself, is this helpful? Is it true? Does it align with what I know about myself? If the answer is no, let it go. You're not required to carry every opinion you hear. And on the flip side, even praise, while it feels good, shouldn't become your foundation, because when your confidence depends on constant approval, it becomes fragile. Real confidence comes from within. It's rooted in self-awareness, in knowing who you are and what you stand for, even when others don't see it. Lao Tzu once said, "Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner." That's not a call to become cold or disconnected. It's a reminder that freedom begins when you stop needing permission to be yourself. So the next time someone tries to define you with their words, ask yourself, do they know the whole story? Do they walk in my shoes? Are they living my life? If not, their opinion isn't the truth. It's just noise. You get to decide what you believe about yourself. You get to set the standard for your own worth. And when you anchor yourself in that, no one's words can pull you off center. True emotional strength isn't found in being liked by everyone. It's found in liking yourself enough that it doesn't matter. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. That's freedom. So stand tall in who you are. Be open to growth, but never dependent on someone else's approval to feel whole, because your worth was never up for debate. Not yesterday, not today, not ever. Lesson 5. Protect your energy by setting boundaries. There comes a point when constantly saying yes starts to feel like saying no to yourself. You agree to help, to listen, to step in over and over until your own needs are buried beneath everyone else's. And yet, you keep doing it. Not because you want to, but because saying no feels uncomfortable, because setting a boundary feels like letting someone down. But protecting your energy isn't a betrayal of others. It's a commitment to yourself. When you lack boundaries, you give away your time and emotional space to anyone who asks for it. Slowly, that catches up to you. You feel exhausted, resentful, maybe even invisible. You're pouring from a cup that's been empty for a while, and it's wearing you down. Setting boundaries is how you stop that cycle. It's how you take responsibility for your well-being without waiting for someone else to recognize that you're overwhelmed. People aren't mind readers. If you don't clearly communicate what's okay and what's not, they'll continue doing what works for them, even if it's draining you. And this isn't about building walls. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about being honest with yourself and others, about what you can give without losing yourself in the process. Think about the moments when you've said yes out of guilt instead of desire, when you felt like you owed someone your time, even though you had nothing left to give. That version of you isn't more generous, it's just more depleted. And over time, that depletion turns into frustration, not just with others, but with yourself. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the ability to live as we wish." And part of that freedom comes from knowing your limits and standing by them. It's realizing that you don't have to over-explain, apologize, or prove your reasons for needing space. You can simply say, "I'm not available for that," and let it be enough. Boundaries also teach others how to treat you. When you consistently show that your time and energy are valuable, the people around you start to value them too. And the ones who don't, they reveal themselves quickly. Let them. That's part of the clarity boundaries bring. Start small. Decide what you're no longer willing to sacrifice. Your rest, your peace, your mental space. Speak up with calm honesty. Not to create conflict, but to create balance. If someone is hurt or surprised by your boundary, that doesn't mean it was wrong. It just means they were used to a version of you that wasn't sustainable. Lao Tzu said, "He who knows when to stop does not find himself in trouble." That kind of wisdom protects you from burnout, from bitterness, and from living a life dictated by obligation instead of choice. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You just need to be true to yourself. And when you honor that, something shifts. You feel lighter, stronger, more rooted in who you are and what matters to you. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about keeping your peace in. Lesson 6. Detach from the opinions of others. Approval feels good. It's comforting to know that people like us, agree with us, or admire what we're doing. But when your sense of direction depends on other people's reactions, you end up living a life built on shifting ground. The truth is, everyone sees the world through their own lens, colored by their experiences, fears, and beliefs. What they think about you often has more to do with them than with you. And yet we carry their opinions like heavy luggage, adjusting our behavior just to avoid disapproval. At some point, you have to ask, why does their opinion matter more than my peace? You might share something you're proud of, your work, your style, your voice, and someone criticizes it or barely reacts. Suddenly your excitement turns into doubt. One comment, one glance, and you're questioning whether you're good enough. That's the trap. You give a stranger, or even a close friend, the authority to validate your worth. And once you start depending on that approval, you'll keep chasing it, never quite secure, never fully grounded. Your worth is not up for negotiation. It's not something to be voted on. You were never meant to live at the mercy of someone else's judgment. Detaching from opinions doesn't mean becoming indifferent or closed off. It means learning to filter. Some feedback helps you grow. Most of it doesn't. Some comes from love. Some from insecurity, projection, or plain misunderstanding. When you internalize every word, every reaction, you lose sight of your own voice. You start editing yourself to fit into someone else's frame. But the goal isn't to be universally accepted. It's to be deeply authentic, whether people understand you or not. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Growth often requires you to stand apart, to be misunderstood, to keep going even when others doubt you. So when someone criticizes you, ask, is this useful? Is it constructive? Is it based on truth or on their own fears? If it's not serving your growth, it's not worth holding on to. And when you find yourself craving approval, pause and ask, am I living for their acceptance or for my own alignment? Lao Tzu put it simply, care about what others think, and you will always be their prisoner. It's not about rejecting community. It's about not letting public opinion become the compass for your self-worth. The more you practice detachment, the more peaceful you become. You start showing up as your full self, unfiltered and unapologetic, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you've stopped trying to shrink. And ironically, the more you do that, the more you attract the people who truly resonate with who you are. So the next time someone questions you, doubts you, or makes you feel small, ask yourself, do they truly know me? Do they live my life? Are they someone whose voice I trust? If not, let their opinion pass like a breeze. You don't have to catch every wind that blows. You're not here to be everyone's favorite. You're here to be free. Lesson 7. Respond with silence, not anger. There's a moment that happens right before we react, right before we raise our voice, send that message, or say the thing we'll wish we could take back. It's subtle, just a few seconds long, but within it lies a decision, to fuel the fire or to stay still. And in that stillness, silence becomes one of the most powerful responses we can offer. We live in a world that often equates speaking up with strength. The louder the voice, the stronger the presence. The quicker the reply, the sharper the wit, the more dominant the position. But what if true strength isn't in how loud you are, but in how still you can be? When someone insults you, provokes you, or disrespects you, the immediate urge is to defend, to explain, to fight back. That's the reaction most people expect. But reacting out of anger often drags you down to their level. You become part of the chaos they created, and in doing so, you surrender your power, because now your peace depends on whether or not you've won the moment. The need to react is often tied to pride. We think staying silent means weakness, that if we don't respond, we're letting someone get away with something. But silence is not submission, it's strategy. It's strength wrapped in restraint. When you choose not to engage with someone's disrespect, you're not ignoring the situation, you're rising above it. You're choosing clarity over conflict. You're saying, I see what you're trying to do, but I won't be pulled into your storm. I'll remain in my calm. And that kind of control? It's rare. It's powerful, and it's deeply liberating. Marcus Aurelius said, the best answer to anger is silence. That wasn't about being passive, it was about wisdom. He understood that anger wants a reaction. It thrives on escalation. It grows louder when you feed it. But when you respond with silence, you cut off its oxygen. Think of a moment where someone tried to provoke you. Maybe they criticized you in front of others, made a sarcastic comment, or pushed one of your emotional triggers. Did reacting help? Or did it leave you more frustrated, more entangled in the negativity, more disconnected from who you want to be? Now imagine how that moment could have played out differently, not by suppressing your emotions, but by stepping back, by taking a breath, by letting the silence speak for itself, because sometimes silence says more than any well-crafted comeback ever could. It tells the other person, you don't get to pull me into this. It tells yourself, my peace matters more than this argument. It tells the world, I choose calm, not chaos. But let's be clear, silence doesn't mean you never speak. It means you decide when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. You're no longer reacting to every opinion, every insult, every uncomfortable moment. You're responding only when it serves your values, your growth, and your peace. This level of emotional control isn't about being cold or detached. It's about being wise enough to know which battles are worth your energy and which are better left alone. It's knowing that you can acknowledge a situation without needing to explain or justify yourself. That your self-respect doesn't require an audience. There's a teaching in Buddhism that says, speak only if it improves upon the silence. That line can become a filter in your daily life. Before you speak, ask, will this help? Will this bring clarity? Or is it just a reaction born from ego or irritation? And if the answer is no, choose the quiet. Some people won't understand this kind of strength. They'll mistake your silence for weakness. But let them, because over time, silence teaches them more than your words ever could. It reflects a level of control and confidence that isn't loud. It's rooted. It doesn't beg to be heard. It commands presence through stillness. And you'll notice something else too. When you start responding with silence, certain situations start dissolving on their own. Certain people stop pushing because they no longer get the reaction they crave. Conflict shrinks when it's not constantly fed. And your life becomes more peaceful, not because the world changed, but because you did. So the next time someone disrespects you, tries to bait you, or throws negativity your way, pause. Don't react out of impulse. Don't let their chaos become yours. Ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? Will my words bring peace, or will they just prolong the tension? And if silence serves you more than words ever could, choose it. Sit in it. Own it. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of strength. It's full of clarity. It's full of power. And sometimes the loudest statement you can make is to say nothing at all. Lesson 8. Practice gratitude to dissolve anger. Anger has a way of creeping in quietly. It often doesn't announce itself with shouting or slamming doors. Sometimes it shows up as irritation over small things, a long line, a delayed text, a careless comment. Sometimes it builds slowly throughout the day, fed by a string of minor frustrations, until one final moment causes it to overflow. When you're caught in that storm, everything feels heavy. The world feels unfair. People feel inconsiderate, and nothing seems to go right. You start focusing on what's missing, what's wrong, what should have happened, but didn't. And the more you dwell in that space, the more anger tightens its grip. But here's a quiet truth that can shift everything. You can't feel angry and grateful at the same time. Gratitude is the emotional opposite of anger. Where anger contracts, gratitude expands. Where anger focuses on what's lacking, gratitude draws your attention to what remains. And it doesn't require a big moment or a life-changing event to access it. Sometimes it starts with something as simple as noticing the warmth of sunlight on your skin, or remembering that, despite the chaos, you still have breath in your lungs. Gratitude isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about realizing that not everything is broken. Cicero called gratitude not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others, because once you tap into it, really tap in, it opens the door to patience, compassion, humility, and perspective. It grounds you when life feels out of control. So the next time anger starts to rise, when someone cuts you off, when plans fall through, When a conversation leaves you feeling dismissed, pause. Just for a moment. Ask yourself, what's still good? What's still working? What haven't I lost? It might feel forced at first, but even the smallest answer can shift your emotional direction. You're stuck in traffic. You still have a car. You have a destination, maybe music to listen to, or a podcast that makes you think. Someone said something hurtful. Yes, it stung. But you have the ability to reflect before reacting. You have emotional tools now that you didn't have years ago. Even in discomfort, there's something to be thankful for. And gratitude doesn't erase the frustration, but it dilutes it. It reminds you that life is rarely all bad, even when it feels like it. Try making gratitude a daily habit, not just in moments of crisis, but as a way of life. Write down 3 things at the end of each day that made you feel grounded or hopeful, no matter how small. The smile from a stranger, a warm meal, a good song, a moment of clarity. With practice, your mind becomes trained to look for the good without being told to, and that shift changes everything. Gratitude is also a powerful tool for reframing. When someone criticizes you, instead of letting the anger fester, try this. I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn, even if the delivery wasn't kind. That doesn't mean the other person was right. It just means you've chosen to extract growth instead of holding on to bitterness. The Buddha once said, "Let us rise up and be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. If we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we did get sick, at least we didn't die. So let us all be thankful." That kind of mindset may sound overly optimistic to some, but it's actually a form of radical clarity. It's the ability to see beyond the moment and recognize the full picture. Not to deny what's hard, but to balance it with what's still here. Gratitude is also deeply empowering. It reminds you that you still have agency, that even when you can't change the situation, you can change your perspective. That anger doesn't have to own you. You can step out of its grasp. So the next time your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, your thoughts start spiraling, pause. Ask yourself, what can I be grateful for in this exact moment? Not someday, not next week. Now anchor yourself in that. You'll find that gratitude doesn't just dissolve anger, it replaces it with peace. It reminds you of your resilience, and most of all, it returns your power, because now you're no longer reacting to the world. You're responding with wisdom. In a world that constantly tries to pull your attention toward what's wrong, gratitude is your quiet rebellion, a daily choice to see what's right and hold on to it. Lesson 9. Reframe criticism as a tool for growth. Criticism can land like a punch, even when it's softly delivered, even when it's well-meaning. Something about being told you're wrong, or not good enough, or could have done better, triggers that inner defense system. The instinct to push back, to explain, to shut down, to say, they just don't understand me. But what if criticism isn't always an attack? What if, in the right light, it's actually a mirror, a tool to see something you might have missed? Most of us are taught to fear criticism, to take it as rejection. But the truth is, criticism, when viewed without ego, is one of the most powerful tools for self-development. It's uncomfortable, yes, but growth doesn't happen in comfort. Growth lives in the space where something challenges us enough to make us look deeper. Still, it's important to be honest. Not all criticism is helpful. Some people speak from a place of projection, from insecurity, from control. Their words aren't meant to build, they're meant to tear down. But even in that, there's something to learn. because how you respond to criticism, constructive or not, says more about your growth than the criticism itself. So instead of instantly pushing back, what if you paused? What if you asked yourself, is there truth here I haven't seen yet? Even if the delivery was harsh, is there something I can use? Let's say you spend weeks working on something, an idea, a project, something that felt meaningful, and the moment you share it, someone points out the flaws. Maybe they're right, maybe they're not. But either way, you feel it sting. That's normal. That first wave of discomfort is human. But after that wave passes, you get to decide what to do with it. You can dismiss the comment and stay in your bubble, or you can examine it, turn it around in your mind, and look for the lesson. Even poorly delivered criticism can carry a seed of insight. There's a line that captures this idea perfectly. Criticism, like rain, should be gentle enough to nourish growth without destroying roots. But life doesn't always hand us gentle feedback. Sometimes it comes in storms. And your job is to protect your roots while still soaking up the water. When someone critiques you, ask 3 things. Who is this person? Do they know your path, your goals, your values? What's their intention? Are they offering help or just passing judgment? Is there anything here that I can grow from, even if I don't like how it was said? That kind of reflection takes emotional maturity. It requires putting your ego aside, not to shrink yourself, but to expand. Because someone who's secure doesn't need to prove they're right every time they're questioned. They listen. They sift through the words. They keep what's useful and release the rest. Epictetus said, if someone speaks ill of you, do not make excuses but say, he obviously does not know the rest of my faults, or he would not have mentioned only these. That kind of humility isn't self-deprecating. It's honest. It means recognizing that we're all imperfect, and that feedback is part of the process. There's also a flip side to this. Don't fear criticism so much that you stop taking risks. If you're doing anything that matters, if you're putting yourself out there, creating, growing, leading, you will be judged. That's part of the territory. Criticism is often a sign you're on the right track, not the wrong one. But what separates the ones who grow from the ones who crumble is this: the ability to take what's helpful and let go of the rest. To not let criticism define your identity, but refine your awareness. Let's say a family member disapproves of your life choices, your career, your beliefs, your way of doing things. Instead of fighting or retreating into silence, you say, I hear you, I'll think about it, not to appease them, but to hold your own space with grace. You're not defending yourself, you're discerning. That's emotional maturity in action. Reframing criticism doesn't mean blindly accepting what others say. It means being open enough to listen and strong enough to decide what's worth taking with you. It's seeing criticism not as a threat to your identity, but as a potential invitation to evolve. So the next time someone offers feedback, especially when it feels uncomfortable, pause. Don't take it as a personal attack. Take it as a moment to check in with yourself. Ask, is there truth here? Can this make me better? Is this helping me grow, or is it just noise? If it's noise, let it pass. If it's truth, let it shape you. Because growth isn't about protecting a perfect image. It's about becoming more aware, more intentional, more resilient. The strongest people aren't the ones who are never criticized. They're the ones who learn from it, without letting it shake who they are. Lesson 10. Master the art of letting go. Holding on feels like control. It feels like safety. It feels like keeping something alive. whether it's a grudge, an argument, a past mistake, or the memory of how someone hurt you. But in truth, holding on often hurts more than it protects. Because the longer you carry it, the heavier it becomes. Letting go is not weakness. It's not giving up. It's not forgetting or pretending it didn't matter. Letting go is strength. It's a quiet kind of power, the kind that says, I no longer want to carry what's been weighing me down. Think about how often you replay something in your mind, a betrayal, an unfair comment, a missed opportunity. You turn it over again and again, hoping maybe the ending will change or the lesson will become clearer. But all it really does is reopen the wound. And the more you hold on to it, the more space it takes up, not just in your thoughts, but in your heart. The Buddha put it in the simplest terms. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. In other words, you're the one being hurt by what you refuse to release. This doesn't mean you have to forget. It doesn't mean you excuse what happened. It means you choose to stop letting it define you. Because every moment you spend clinging to the past is a moment you rob from your present. And the longer you carry that weight, the less room you have for peace, joy, clarity, and growth. Letting go isn't passive, it's an active decision. It's choosing to say, this no longer deserves space in my life. Whether it's resentment toward someone else or shame toward yourself, the process is the same. You feel it fully, you acknowledge it, and then you release it. Sometimes what you're letting go of isn't a person, it's a version of yourself. The one who made mistakes, the one who didn't know better, the one who stayed too long, tried too hard, or gave too much. You don't need to punish that version of you. You need to thank them for getting you here and let them go. Lao Tzu said, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." And that's the heart of it. Letting go isn't just about what you release. It's about what you make room for. Think about someone who hurt you deeply. Maybe they never apologized. Maybe they never even acknowledged the damage they caused. You've carried that pain like a stone, believing that holding on to it keeps you strong. But the truth is, it only keeps you stuck. The real power isn't in remembering every detail of the pain. It's in choosing not to be ruled by it anymore. Or maybe you're holding on to guilt. Something you said, something you didn't do, a decision you regret. And every time you think you've moved on, it pulls you back in. But shame doesn't heal you. Self-forgiveness does. And forgiveness isn't saying it didn't matter. It's saying, I matter enough not to stay trapped here. So how do you start letting go? First, acknowledge the feeling. Don't suppress it. Don't minimize it. Give it a name. Anger, grief, guilt. Whatever it is, name it, feel it, sit with it. Then ask, is this feeling serving me or keeping me stuck? Second, reframe the experience. Not with denial, but with compassion. What did this teach me? How have I grown through this? What strength did I discover in the aftermath? And finally, return to the present. Letting go isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing to live fully in the now. The more you anchor yourself in this moment, the less power the past holds over you. Marcus Aurelius, a man who faced betrayal, loss, and pressure few of us could imagine, said, "Do not be disturbed by what is outside your control. Let it go, and you will find peace." These weren't empty words. They were survival strategies, and they still hold truth today. Letting go doesn't mean you'll never feel the sting again. It means the sting doesn't stop you from living. It's okay to mourn what was lost. It's okay to wish things had been different. But at some point, for your own peace, you have to unclench your grip and say, This doesn't serve me anymore. That's when healing begins. That's when clarity returns. That's when peace has room to enter. So if you're still holding on, whether it's to a person, a moment, a past version of yourself, ask gently, is this worth my peace? And if the answer is no, then maybe it's time. Time to set it down. Time to move forward. Time to finally feel how light life can be, when your hands are open and free. Conclusion. You've just walked through 10 powerful lessons, not abstract theories, but real, practical ways to take back control of your emotions and protect your peace. These tools aren't about pretending you're unaffected. They're about choosing how you respond when life gets messy. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you'll never feel anger or frustration again. It means you're no longer ruled by those emotions. You've learned to pause before reacting, to set boundaries, to stop needing approval, and to let go of what no longer serves you. That's real strength. This is a practice, a mindset, a commitment you make daily, not to be perfect, but to be intentional. Each time you choose calm over chaos, you're building the kind of inner power no one can take from you. If this resonated with you, share it. And if a particular lesson stood out, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're taking with you. Thanks for tuning in. Stay grounded, stay growing, and most of all, stay unbothered.